An empire not of conquerors, whose campaign across the universe would forever prove even the darkest of hearts can come to know peace.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my full Marvel What If Season 2 Episode 7 video. There's a whole bunch of Easter eggs and references, so we'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. We only have a couple episodes left this season, but we will be getting What If Season 3, at least by 2025. I don't think it's coming next year, but we'll see. Careful for spoilers. If you haven't seen the episode yet, we'll start at the beginning, work our way through shot by shot, talking about Easter eggs, WTF moments, and everything that's going to lead up to the last two episodes, or basically sound like they're going to be like a two-part finale almost. Starting with the episode title, What If Hela Found the 10 Rings? It's basically a speedrun version of the plot of the first Thor movie, but with Hela crossed with some of the plot of the Shang movie and Avengers Infinity War with that tag scene at the end. It's the shortest episode of the season. It's about the same length, though, as a normal 30-minute episode of television on broadcast TV, like on cable, which usually winds up being closer to about 23-24 minutes without any commercials. As you could probably tell, Cate Blanchett came back to play Hela again. I believe she's also a big part of the Marvel 1602 episode, maybe even the finale. Idris Elba also came back to play Heimdall again, but pretty much everybody else in the episode was played by a brand new actor, like Wenwu, Odin were both played by brand new people. They use the standard speedrun, super quick version of the Marvel Studios intro and the Marvel Studios fanfare, like there's no special theme music at the beginning of this episode. The Watcher narrates how history changed in this universe. After Hela and Odin finished conquering the 9 realms, as you saw during the backstory in Thor Ragnarok, Odin decides to stop instead of continuing to conquer the entire universe. Like originally, that was the plan. Odin was trying to conquer the entire universe. Hela rebels against him because she wants to continue their fight just as she did in the MCU movies, but instead of imprisoning her in Hell, H-E-L, Marvel's version of Asgard's underworld, in the MCU it's just an alternate dimension, he banishes her to Earth after stripping her of her powers in a scene that's basically copy-pasted from the first Thor movie. It plays out pretty much the same way it did with Thor in that movie. They start on the mural that sits on the roof of the throne room that Odin later had painted over, hiding their true bloody history of Asgard. All these people, as it pans across, are soldiers from the different armies that are fighting them. I believe that these soldiers are meant to be from Vanaheim, which is where Frigga comes from initially. We actually saw her visiting her family there during the events of What If Season 1. These soldiers on horseback in the background are Hela and Odin's army, the Asgardians. Just like the mural in Thor Ragnarok, she's riding Fenris Wolf, wielding Mjolnir, which is Thor's hammer in present day. This is before Odin put the worthiness enchantment on it, so when Hela was wielding it thousands of years ago, anybody could pick it up and use it. When the Watcher says firstborn daughter Hela, there's an interesting theory that they confirm later in this episode that's been going on since Thor Ragnarok came out. After she's banished to Earth, she reveals that Odin has recently started dating a really crazy woman that she hates called Frigga, referring to her like she's never met Frigga before or barely knows her. Like, I can't stand this other new woman that he started going out with.
Also, my dad has this new girlfriend, Frigga. She's a dreadful woman, not really a fan of hers either. So, yeah, it's just those three.
Confirming that Frigga is not Hela's mother. There were so many questions about this after Thor Ragnarok came out in Avengers Infinity War, because during Thor Ragnarok, Odin only referred to Hela as Thor and Loki's sister, his firstborn. When we got to Avengers Infinity War, though, Thor refers to Hela as his half-sister, meaning that they had different mothers. Thor wasn't born until after Odin imprisoned Hela, so like Frigga wasn't pregnant with Thor when this was happening. But in the MCU movies, they never explicitly stated who Hela's mother was, if it wasn't Frigga. In Norse mythology, it's very different. Like, the backstory behind all the characters and relationships are very different. She's actually the daughter of Loki in a giantess. She's born on Jotunheim, where Loki comes from, and Odin eventually makes her the ruler of Hel, their underworld. In the comics, Hela is not Thor's sister or even part of his family. She's just another god who rules over Hel, H-E-L. Inside the MCU movies, they made her a little bit more like Angela from the comics, Thor's secret sister. During the episode, Hela never reveals who her actual mother was, so like the theories will continue after this, like, who is it? Probably the best current theories right now is that it was just another cosmic being or another Asgardian shield maiden who died at some point that Odin just had relations with, because Frigga is supposed to be his first actual wife, like he wasn't married to anyone before Frigga. But that would also mean that Hela was a bastard child that he legitimized. There's a whole backstory of Asgard, Odin, the MCU that's very different and way more Game of Thronesy in the comics. It involves a huge power struggle within Odin's family going back to the time of his grandfather. This is Odin's grandfather, not Thor's grandfather. I could do a whole video just explaining the backstory of the Asgardians just in general, but it's not super relevant to this episode. Needless to say, Odin slept around a lot, as he did in Norse mythology, so Hela's mother could be any one of the women he got down with but was not married to. The Watcher continues to narrate this backstory as they pan around the mural more. You see the Valkyries fighting the frost giants in the background. When they reference the branches of the World Tree, Loki literally just reorganized the multiverse into a more cosmic version of the World Tree on a much grander scale than the World Tree representing the 9 realms inside the MCU. They basically continue with her version of the scene from the first Thor movie. She's in the middle of rebelling against Odin, taking out all the guards inside the Bifrost. I think her plan here was to forcibly take the throne of Asgard from Odin, then continue their war of conquest across the universe. They give her a reverse version of the scene from Thor Ragnarok where she broke Thor's hammer after catching it, with Odin catching it and breaking it this time. R.I.P. Mjolnir. Pretty much all of Odin's dialogue here is the exact same thing that he said to Thor during that first Thor movie when he was taking his power and putting the worthiness enchantment on his hammer.
Whosoever wears this crown, should she know mercy, shall possess the power of Hela.
Whosoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor.
He takes her crown, does the same thing with her power. This is all done through magic, like he uses magic to strip her of her power and give her helmet the worthiness enchantment. When he says his father and his father before him, they kind of briefly brush across this in the Thor movies. Odin's father was named Bor, and his grandfather was named Buri. Asgard itself did not exist as a kingdom when his grandfather was still alive and king of their people. Originally, Odin and all of his people come from a race called the Aesir. What wound up happening is that Odin's father, Bor, became the next king after his grandfather, but Bor's brother actually left and created the kingdom of Vanaheim, rebelling against them. So it became this whole Game of Thrones thing with their kingdoms fighting against each other, and they formed peace by marrying Bor's son, Odin, to his brother's daughter, who was Frigga. So Odin basically married his cousin to seal the peace treaty. Marrying your cousin, also very Game of Thronesy. That's just how they get down in the Marvel Universe. Odin casts Hela to Earth. She lands in China in the middle of Wenwu's army in the Ten Rings in the distant past. Remember, this is before Thor's been born, so it's about 1500 years ago. When the Watcher says the most powerful forces on Earth often come from beyond, that's a reference to the Ten Rings coming from another planet or another dimension, which they still have not confirmed where they actually came from in the MCU. The designs on the Ten Rings look similar to Kang's designs in Ant-Man the Wasp: Quantumania, but given the way things have gone down since then and the way they treated the character during Ant-Man the Wasp: Quantumania, I don't think that Kang created the Ten Rings. They're still transmitting that signal to who knows where, I think to another dimension, and they'll pay that off in Shang-Chi too. And they just confirmed that they're actually working on that movie, but no idea when we're actually going to see it. I think that the source or the origin of the Ten Rings will have something to do with Avengers 5 and Avengers 6, so it's possible that they came from another universe, because we're talking about a big multiverse overarching plot right now. I don't think any of the current theories about where the Ten Rings came from are correct, like people trying to tie them to Galactus or Annihilus, like other really big Marvel characters. I think that Marvel's going to do something similar to what they did in the first Shang-Chi movie, where they create a bunch of new lore in backstory for the Ten Rings that doesn't exist in the comics. They use the standard what-if intro, there's no special new scenes during this, and then Wenwu winds up finding Hela and plays like a stabbier version of the plot from the first Thor movie when he arrived on Earth. They reveal Hela also knows how to speak Mandarin. When she's mocking him, talking about bowing before her as their queen, it's the same thing she said to Thor during Thor Ragnarok. Then the scene of her trying to pick up her helmet is just like Thor trying to lift his hammer in the first Thor movie. They wind up taking her back to Wenwu's Ten Rings compound. It's meant to be the exact same place that you saw in the Shang-Chi movie. They tease some chemistry between them, so maybe eventually they do get together at some point in the distant future. It seems like he does have some kind of attraction to her, but he's mostly attracted right now to her desire for battle and conquest. She escapes and gets help by a creature like Morris from the Shang-Chi movie. It's not Morris himself, it's just like another member of his species, who leads her to the enchanted forest that protects the entrance to Ta Lo, the gateway between dimensions. When she mentions the first ass that she followed into battle, that's meant to be Odin. We get a quick shot of the Watcher peeping her from the sky as she rides past. They give Hela a lot of quips during the episode, like she's very quippy, Tony Stark style. But there are a couple funny moments here with her making fun of his butt face, because it just looks kind of like a butt. Like, am I talking to your butt or am I talking to your face? What's the deal here? How does this work? When she references the creature telling her she'll find what she seeks beyond this valley, the whole idea is that it's helping her find a place to hide from everyone because Wenwu cannot enter Ta Lo. She's trying to find a place to escape from everyone. She confirms that she's over 1,000 years old because her battle to conquer the 9 realms lasted at least 1,000 years, so she'd have to be a little bit older than that. They make it into Ta Lo in that other dimension, and she's attacked by Jia Ying, who's the current protector of the barrier between dimensions. It's the same role that Shang-Chi's mother served later in the timeline, but this is meant to be a totally different character. Like, it isn't his mother who Hela is fighting. Then the reason Heimdall can no longer see her in Ta Lo is because his ability only allows him to see most, not everything, but most things in the MCU universe, and Ta Lo is in another dimension. She literally fell off the map because she's in another universe. She wakes in the village in Ta Lo. The firebirds she sees are from the Shang-Chi movie. Everything here in the village is meant to be the exact same. This is just 1,500 years ago in the past. So they've trapped the Dweller in Darkness creature already in the mountain prison. That's why the village was created in the first place, to house all the people living there for the purposes of ensuring that it stayed in its prison. When she says she wasn't aware of such magic still existing on Midgard, she's probably referring to the age of Merlin, Camelot, when I think sorcerers were more prevalent across the map. I think part of the idea is that over time, more sorcerers started to congregate around Kamar Taj and basically hide themselves from public knowledge. With a few exceptions, like Doctor Strange, for instance, who's super famous, like everybody in the MCU, like common people, know who he is. She says their village is here to protect the main 616 dimension from threats from the underworld. That's also a reference to the Dweller in Darkness, and Hela, in the comics, is from the Asgardian underworld, Hel, H-E-L. She confirms Odin started a relationship with Frigga, and Thor hasn't been born yet, like I talked about this earlier, confirming that Frigga is not her mother. Let me know in the comments who you actually think that it is. Like I said, I think it's probably just some random person that he got down with at some point before he actually became king. She convinces them to teach her their special space kung fu fighting abilities, which are basically like kung fu mixed with airbending, to make more Avatar The Last Airbender references. We just had the Kahhori episode. In the MCU, she's kind of like an energy bender, so lots of Avatar The Last Airbender energy going on inside the What If series. She sees the Great Protector Dragon and almost winds up crapping her pants. Odin then declares war on Wenwu, coming to take the 10 rings, thinking that he was responsible for Hela's death, mistakenly. When she starts watching the man practicing the abilities, saying she'd rather do that with fire or knives or fire knives, they do pay that off later in her fight with Odin, where she actually uses the fire knives. Jia Yi basically gives Hela a PTSD flashback to her childhood with a young Fenris wolf who seems like a typical pup. She seems like a totally normal Asgardian child, super happy, and I think the idea here is that Odin basically beat the happiness out of her and turned her into the killing machine she is in present day. Like, he twisted her to be this way when he was still a really bad dad. Like, if you thought that he was a bad dad to Thor, he was way worse before Thor came along. Which is why Hela is the way that she is. She comes to the realization that the thing she really wants isn't conquest, it's actually true freedom, and then vows to free the entire universe, starting with the 9 realms. Which basically amounts to her getting rid of all the warlords, despots, or other god-level beings that are terrorizing the universe. They give her a bigger training montage as she masters their fighting techniques, which is basically what we saw during the Shang-Chi movie, like a version of the training montage that he got when he was learning their fighting techniques. Then, because this is like a super quick speedrun type of episode, Odin arrives immediately on Earth to take the 10 rings. Hela leaves Ta Lo, never to return. They don't follow because they have to stay and guard the Dweller in Darkness's prison, like that's still going on in the background. She joins Wenwu, they team up to fight Odin together, now with her space kung fu and airbending powers. Their conflict basically comes down to him refusing, being too stubborn to see her desire for freedom for the universe. Like, it has to be Odin's way. Like, no, I am the king. I said that it's going to be this way. It has to be this way. The way the fight goes down, obviously Hela wins for plot reasons mostly. In reality, Odin in the comics is way more powerful than Odin in the MCU. The Odin Force makes him one of the most powerful beings in the universe, next to like the Celestials or other cosmic entities like the Phoenix. There are more powerful beings, like the Phoenix is way more powerful than Odin, obviously. But like the Odin Force doesn't reside in his spear, and in the episode they use that as a big MacGuffin, like get him away from his spear, that'll depower him big time. In reality, that wouldn't do much of anything. The spear is meant to be super powerful, like Stormbreaker or Mjolnir, but just like Thor in the MCU, Odin's god-level power resides inside him, not inside the spear. So just like Thor, they don't actually need weapons, they are the weapon. But I think just for plot reasons in the episode, they want this to mirror the first Thor movie in the Shang-Chi movie, so like they want it to be an actual weapon that they get away from him. She's able to defeat him using her new abilities, and the scene of her becoming worthy is also a copy of the first Thor movie, with him becoming worthy, getting his hammer back. He offers her the throne of Asgard, and it seems like he's happy with the way things went down. Like, oh, you've evolved as a person. I'm so happy for you. Basically letting her do whatever she wants as the new queen of Asgard. They explain that basically amounts to her freeing the 9 realms, like reversing Odin's conquest or the damage done by his conquest, then doing the same thing around the rest of the universe, but it takes thousands of years for them to make it around the universe. They show her with the new army, with Wenwu still fighting with her because the 10 rings slowed his aging, allowing him to live for almost forever as long as he continued to wear them. They arrive on Gamora's homeworld just as Thanos' army is balancing it. This scene is basically taken directly from Avengers Infinity War, implying that she stopped or killed Thanos, then went on to stop all the other warlords, the gods who were conquering other worlds, enslaving people, or just killing tons of people, basically mopping up the universe one world at a time, kind of doing a reverse version of Thanos' quest to balance the universe, balancing it, but in another direction. Perfectly balanced is all things should be. Like I said too, because they implied that chemistry between her and Wenwu earlier, even though she had no interest in getting married, that doesn't mean that she wasn't willing to actually get down with him eventually. They can imply that maybe they started a relationship at some point, so that actually means in this universe, she would become Shang-Chi's mother instead. Meaning that Shang-Chi would actually be her son in this universe. It was a pretty solid episode, even if it was a little too short. Like I was hoping for just like a little bit more, like it was a super speed run version of all those movies jammed together. Cate Blanchett is an amazing actress. No matter what kind of dialogue they gave her, she would have done an amazing job with it. There are a bunch of Easter eggs and references, so if you spotted any that I didn't talk about in the video, just write them below in the comments. And my full episode 8 video will post tomorrow. That'll be the Marvel 1602 episode. It looks like it is going to be a banger. It's meant to pay off all those post-credit scenes we just saw with Scarlet Witch, Merlin, Supreme Strange, pulling all those characters from across the multiverse to their teams. I don't know if Scarlet Witch's team is on the opposite side of Supreme Strange's team or if they're working together, but I believe that Cate Blanchett is also coming back again in that episode as another version of Hela, not Hela the White that we saw in episode 7. I think the Marvel 1602 Hela is meant to be the Queen Scarlet Witch referred to when they said they were trying to save their queen, and it's meant to be a version of Hela who's more like Queen Elizabeth I, and it's meta Easter egg because in real life Cate Blanchett also played a version of Queen Elizabeth I in the movies. The circle of Easter eggs is now complete. They did not reveal who the main villain of that episode is going to be. It sounds more like a Civil War situation with a bunch of different Marvel characters fighting on opposite sides of this war that's going on in this universe. But we will have an actual main villain during the finale, so whatever happens during that Marvel 1602 episode, it sounds like whatever main villain will wind up actually rising amongst all that stuff, and it'll just spill into the finale. Kind of the same way they did things during Season 1 with that Infinity Stone version of Ultron, like you see him during Episode 8, then in the finale, just things carry forward into that. There's a bunch of other stuff coming up, so I'll try to do videos for everything the next couple of days. Be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss any of that. Click here for that Episode 8 video. I'll update the link as soon as I post it, and click here for all my What If episodes. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.